Since the Depression, there were strict underwriting guidelines that Wall Street adhered to when taking a company public, says one prominent hedge fund manager. The company had to be in business for a minimum of 5 years, and it had to show profitability for 3 consecutive years. But Wall Street took these guidelines and threw them in the trash. Goldman Sachs completed the snow job by pumping up the sham stocks. Did you hear this? So remember during the dot-com burst, they created it, according to this article. The dot-com stock, the tech stock bubble, they made billions of dollars. They changed the laws, and they took obscene profits, and they left you holding the bag. The next thing that they did was take their money, and they did the next bubble, the housing bubble, the housing trick. It was all a bubble. And what they did was they turned houses into IPOs in essence. You may not know this, but when I was young and I wanted my first mortgage, I had to produce the following. I had to show I had 20% down. I had to show I had a steady income and a good job. I had to show I had a good credit rating. And I also had to show a real first and last name. All of this went out the window with the crooks in the U.S. government. Goldman Sachs created vehicles to package these garbage mortgages that were given to anybody who wanted them. Barney Frank, of course, enabled this by forcing banks that didn't want to go along with it to lend money to unqualified people, largely illegal aliens who had fake names. And so this created a monster of toxic debt because everybody knew that these mortgages would eventually not be paid. And once they collapsed, the housing market would collapse with it. And who made the money before the housing market collapsed? Who took the money out? Who took out the billions and billions of dollars? Have you ever heard of an instrument called credit default swaps? Do you know what collateralized debt obligations are? They're complicated, aren't they? They're pure, unadulterated garbage. They're criminal enterprises. Goldman Sachs created them, and they stole the money and left you with a housing collapse. I'll be right back.
Is your inheritance stuck in probate? Inheritance Funding Company can advance you the cash you need in as little as 72 hours. Go to inheritancefunding.com or call 877-YOU-AIR. That's 877-YOU-HEIR.
They're funny, they're entertaining, and I couldn't drive an hour without them.
Armstrong and Getty. Weekday morning 6 to 10. Talk 910 KNEW.
I couldn't sleep last night after seeing the slasher movie, and I read the article in Rolling Stone called The Great American Bubble Machine. From tech stocks to high gas prices, Goldman Sachs has engineered every major market manipulation since the Great Depression, and they're about to do it again. And he's talking about the so-called global warming bill that just passed and the cap-and-trade scam. And he goes back to the beginning, and he says most of us know the major players by now. As George Bush's last Treasury Secretary, former Goldman CEO Henry Paulson was the architect of the bailout. A suspiciously self-serving plan to funnel trillions of your dollars to a handful of his old friends on Wall Street. I told you that when it happened. Robert Rubin, Bill Clinton's former Treasury Secretary, spent 26 years at Goldman before becoming chairman of Citigroup, which in turn got a $300 billion taxpayer bailout from Paulson. John Thain. I mean, there's a whole bunch of names. We don't have to go through every one of them. You should just know that these people have been ruining America, not running America, ruining America for decades right now. And it was all well and good while the bubbles were floating in the air, wasn't it? Society was feeling like it was wealthy, but it was all fake wealth. It was totally fake wealth. And the suckers who got in at the end are the people who got screwed. The fact is, these pyramid schemes are no different than those created by Bernie Madoff. The only difference is Bernie Madoff was not politically connected. Yes, he bought off Chuck Schumer, Chris Dodd, and some other low-life Democrats long enough to keep the SEC off his back. But Bernie Madoff was not Treasury Secretary. Paulson was in the last administration. And, of course, Paulson was a far more clever Ponzi schemer than Madoff, in my opinion. But where is Paulson today? Why have you not heard from this man? Where is he? Why is there no discussion of him when he's the man who engineered the so-called bailout that has not helped the economy? It's just bailed out his friends on Wall Street. He says, if America is now circling the drain, Goldman Sachs has found a way to be that drain. I'm reading from the article. I can't quote the whole article, but you have to see how these bankers modified laws that were put in place by more honorable men to protect America and America's economy, and how these evildoers rewrote the laws to permit themselves to create fiduciary instruments that were nothing more than sewage, and then sell this sewage to other people who then bought and sold the sewage and made commissions on the sewage. And at the end, you were left holding the bag. The old people, in other words, the children, the pensioners, were wound up with nothing. Alan Greenspan, Larry Summers, Robert Rubin, and SE Chief Arthur Levitt are mentioned in the article. You see, there was a time not long ago that people were screaming for more regulation of the gangsters and gangsterism. But he says that more regulation wasn't exactly what Goldman had in mind. He said the banks want it stopped, said Michael Greenberger, who worked for, now law professor at the University of Maryland. He said, quote, and I'm quoting now, Alan Greenspan, Lawrence Summers, Robert Rubin, and SE Chief Arthur Levitt want the regulation stopped. Did you hear this? And so they stopped it. The minute they stopped it, the Commodity Futures Modernization Act was inserted into an 11,000-page spending bill, and that permitted commodities to be turned into the equivalent of sewage pumped into a bubble. In other words, the commodities markets were controlled to protect the farmer originally. But these gangsters rewrote the laws, according to this article, to screw the world, not just the farmers, in order to suck more money out of the economy, according to this article.
Savage.
Hi, we are Armstrong and Getty. We're on every weekday morning from 6 to 10.
He is a national treasure. He is Dr. Savage on Talk 910 KNEW.
We are talking about a new expose that has been written in Rolling Stone about Goldman Sachs. It's very important for a number of reasons. One, because it appears to be 100% true. Two, because it's long overdue. And three, I tried to tell you about the danger of having an investment bank running America. Because by nature, a private business that's running a government is going to use the government's, the power of the government, to profit for themselves, you see. And I said, the article's extremely long. I read it at 3 o'clock in the morning last night, and it was the worst horror show I've ever seen because it's everything I feared but more. I have nothing against wealth. I admire wealthy people who made their money by creating a service or a product that was useful and built upon their guts, their brain, and their audacity. I admire it very much. I detest thieves of this type. I have more respect for organized criminals than I do for these people for one reason. The organized criminal is a crook, and he is a crook. The drug dealer is a drug dealer. They're evil people. But they don't disguise themselves usually in the streets as something other than drug dealers. These guys pretend that they're cleaner than the driven snow. These are the men who get up and hire PR agencies to show them as fly fishermen, family men, etc., but they're villains. There was an age of the robber baron, if you read about it, at the turn of the century. It was so evil during the period of the robber baron that a populist president appeared named Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt ran as a populist. And you know what Teddy Roosevelt's principal campaign slogan was? Bust the trusts. Now, the trusts today would be called corporations. And, of course, you don't want to destroy corporations for the sake of destroying corporations, but what you want to do is get behind the veil of legitimacy that is created by many corporations, behind which is nothing but a scam operation. And that's what this is we're talking about here. We have gangsters who have somehow bought off the politicians. They have destroyed Western democracy. They have sold us out to China and Saudi Arabia and God knows who else. They have created loopholes in the system that have not only robbed the economy of every dollar that they could get their greedy hands on, but they have destroyed the currency itself to the point where China's currency is now being considered as a world currency to replace the U.S. dollar. Who did it? The people at Martha's Vineyard. The people in the fat houses on Martha's Vineyard did it. The fact of the matter is there are names to these people. The fact is that these robber barons are very much alive and well. The fact of the matter is that the destroyed pension funds, the massive layoffs, the monster taxation that is going to be imposed upon we the people to pay for these scum vermin is going into their pockets. And that's what this article is about. These people are running and ruining the economy. But it's only just begun. It wasn't enough that they created and destroyed the tech stock bubble.